What if the monsters and magic of the Odyssey were inspired by real places and ancient fears? Tonight, you'll discover the secrets behind Homer's timeless adventure and why Odysseus' journey still matters today. Welcome, weary traveler, to the History Sleepcast. Have you ever felt lost, longing for home? That's exactly what Odysseus faced for 20 years. Tonight, as the world outside falls quiet, let the waves of history carry you home. Stay with me, and you'll see how myth, memory, and history collide in the Odyssey. And with Christopher Nolan's highly anticipated adaptation arriving in theaters next year, there's no better moment to revisit the myth that started it all. Before you experience Nolan's cinematic vision of gods, monsters, and the man who defied them all, let us guide you through Homer's timeless masterpiece, a story that has echoed through centuries and continues to inspire to this day. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your breath deepen and slow. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest, like the rhythm of waves, mirroring the tides of the ocean on which our story now unfolds. This is not the beginning of a journey, but its aching, prolonged end. For 10 long years, the Greeks, the Achaeans, waged war against the mighty city of Troy. In the pale haze of a distant dawn, 10 ships once slipped away from Greek shores, their sails full of salt and fate. Among them, Odysseus, king of Ithaca, husband to Penelope, father to young Telemachus, reluctant warrior, clever strategist. He had not wished to go. When the call to war came, Odysseus feigned madness, sowing his fields with salt instead of seed. But the gods, they're not so easily fooled. And so, he sailed. 10 years of blood and fire followed. Battles fought beneath the towering walls of Troy. Heroes fell. Cities burned. And in the final days, it was Odysseus, with that sharp, cunning mind, who conceived the fabled ruse, a wooden horse, hollow and silent, an offering that would become the Greeks' hidden dagger. It was this trick, this deception, that brought Troy to its knees. Victory was theirs, and the war was over. The surviving heroes began their journeys home. But Odysseus did not. For another 10 years, storms, angry gods, monsters, witches, and his own pride would delay his return. A punishment, or perhaps a test. His name faded into myth. In Ithaca, his throne sat empty. Suitors filled his halls, whispering sweet lies to Penelope, each hoping she would finally abandon hope, that she would surrender to them, the kingdom, and her heart. But she waited. She always waited. And now, let us imagine, just for a moment, the vast, shimmering expanse of the Aegean Sea, a deep, sapphire blue under the Mediterranean sun, still and serene one moment, then wild and merciless the next. It is across these ancient waters that Odysseus, with a dwindling crew and a soul heavy from battle, begins his long voyage home. His journey is just beginning. Their first stop after departing the ruins of Troy was the land of the Cyclades. At first, it seemed a small victory, a brief moment of rest. But greed and carelessness turned fortune against them. They lingered too long, plundered too freely, and the Cyclades rallied. A fierce counterattack drove Odysseus and his men back to their ships, bloodied and diminished. A harsh reminder: the gods reward neither hubris nor delay. From there, a violent storm swept down from the heavens, sent perhaps by Zeus himself or Poseidon, the earth shaker. Winds howled, waves towered, and for 9 agonizing days, they were tossed across the vast sea, far from any known shore. At last, the winds relented. They found themselves on a strange and dreamy island, the land of the lotus eaters. Here, a deceptively simple plant grew, the lotus. Those who ate of it, the legends say, forgot their homes, their families, their very purpose. A gentle oblivion. Some of Odysseus's men, enchanted by its sweetness, refused to return to the ship. They sat, smiling softly, eyes distant, lost in the lotus's spell. Odysseus had to physically drag his enchanted men back to the ship, binding them to their benches, to force them to continue their journey. And so they sailed onward, away from temptation, back into uncertainty. Their next landfall was a place of giants, the island of the Cyclopes, one-eyed shepherds, massive and wild, untouched by the laws of gods or men. Odysseus, ever curious, led a small scouting party ashore. They found a vast, shadowy cave, and inside, the monstrous Polyphemus, a towering figure, brutish, merciless. Polyphemus trapped them, sealing the cave entrance with a massive boulder, and began to devour Odysseus's men, 2 at a time, each day. Odysseus, ever the cunning strategist, devised a plan. He offered the Cyclops strong wine, intoxicating him, and when the giant was in a drunken slumber, Odysseus and his men sharpened a giant olive wood stake, heated it in the fire, and plunged it into Polyphemus's single eye. The Cyclops roared in agony, but when his fellow Cyclops outside asked who was harming him, Odysseus, with a final stroke of genius, had told Polyphemus his name was Nobody. So the giant cried out, "Nobody is harming me! Nobody is harming me!" His kin, thinking him mad, left him alone. With a desperate effort, the remaining men escaped, clinging to the bellies of Polyphemus's sheep. But as they sailed away, Odysseus, in a moment of pride, could not resist shouting his true name back to the Cyclops. A fatal error. For Polyphemus was a son of Poseidon, and his father, god of the sea, would never forget this insult. Polyphemus roared and called upon his father, and Poseidon listened. From that moment on, the sea itself would rise against Odysseus. His path home would be longer, harder, twisted by divine vengeance. The journey continued. Across waters both calm and cursed, Odysseus and his weary crew arrived at a strange, floating island. Olia, realm of Aeolus, the keeper of the winds. A great palace crowned its center, walled in bronze, drifting above the sea like a dream. Aeolus, a gracious host and favored by the gods, welcomed Odysseus with warmth. He listened to the tale of Troy, of storms and suffering, and offered a gift, strange and powerful. A leather bag. Inside it, all the winds that might blow Odysseus off course. The east, the north, the fierce gales of the south, each one tied tightly, sealed with silver cord, so only the west wind, a gentle breeze, would remain free, guiding their ship homeward. Odysseus, at last, saw Ithaca on the horizon, so close he could smell the shores of his homeland. But as he slept, exhausted by years of wandering, curiosity overtook his crew. They believed the bag held riches, gold, or treasure kept secret, and so they opened it. In an instant, the winds howled out, wild and furious. The ship was hurled backward, blown away from Ithaca, away from home, back into the open sea. When Odysseus awoke and saw the storm, saw the island vanish behind them, his heart broke. He had been within reach, and now he was further than ever. His hopes were dashed, his homecoming snatched away. But the sea, ever shifting, gave no time for mourning. Soon, their battered ship approached a land of towering cliffs and narrow harbors, the realm of the Laestrygonians. At first glance, it seemed still, almost eerily peaceful. The cliffs wrapped protectively around a calm bay, and the sailors, tired and hopeful, guided their ships into the quiet waters. But what lay beyond was not peace. It was a trap. The Laestrygonians were giants, tall as trees, with strength beyond reason, and appetites that turned men into prey. As Odysseus sent scouts inland, the truth revealed itself. These were no simple islanders. They were cannibals, hunters. Before the crew could react, the Lestrygonians attacked. It rained down from the cliffs, smashing ships like toy boats. Men were speared like fish, hauled off in the grip of monstrous hands. One by one, 11 of Odysseus's 12 ships were destroyed, dragged into the sea, or torn apart in the harbor. Only one ship escaped, Odysseus's own. It had remained outside the narrow bay, anchored cautiously in open waters. And so, with heavy hearts and fewer voices, they turned their bow from the smoke and screams, and slipped once more into the open sea, leaving behind only silence and sorrow. With just one ship remaining, Odysseus and his dwindling crew arrived at the island of Ithaca, home to the beautiful and powerful sorceress Circe. She greeted some of Odysseus's men with hospitality, offering them food and drink, but with a trick, she turned them into pigs. Odysseus, guided by the god Hermes, who gave him a magical herb called moly to resist Circe's magic, confronted the sorceress. He forced her to restore his men to human form. For a year, they remained on her island, feasting and recovering, until his men, and then Circe herself, urged him to continue his journey. But first, Circe gave him a terrifying instruction. To reach home, he must descend into the underworld, the realm of the dead, to consult the blind prophet Tiresias. Beyond mortal lands, to the edge of the world itself, Odysseus and his crew sailed, to the land of the Cimmerians, shrouded in mist and endless twilight. Here stood the dark threshold of Hades, the realm of the dead. With solemn care, Odysseus performed the ancient rites. He dug a trench in the earth, poured libations of honey, wine, and water, and then offered the blood of a black ram, a sacred gift to summon the restless dead. From the shadows they came. Fallen warriors, distant kin, and finally, the ghost of his own mother, Anticlea, whom grief had taken, but most important of all, the blind prophet Tiresias. With hollow eyes and a voice like wind through leaves, Tiresias confirmed what Odysseus already feared. His journey home would not be swift. He warned of trials yet to come, of dangers in the straits ahead, of a sacred herd, the cattle of the sun god, Helios, that must not be harmed. And then, in a voice as gentle as dusk, he spoke of Odysseus's death, not in battle, not by treachery, but in old age by the sea, a quiet death, a final rest. Odysseus returned from the underworld, the memory of shadows heavy on his heart. But the sea was never done testing him. Soon, the sound of song filled the air. Sweet, too sweet. The sirens, beautiful creatures whose enchanting songs lured sailors to their deaths on rocky shores. But Odysseus was prepared. He ordered his crew to fill their ears with beeswax, deaf to the call. And as for himself, he had them bind him to the mast, tight as iron. As they passed, the sirens sang of forgotten glories, lost loves, and truths untold. Odysseus thrashed against the ropes, desperate to reach them, but his loyal men rowed on, unhearing, unmoved. Only when the song faded and the waters stilled did they release him, the echo of that haunting music lingering in his mind like a dream half-remembered. His loyal crew held fast. Then came the impossible choice: navigate between Scylla and Charybdis. Scylla, a monstrous creature with 6 grotesque heads, each with rows of glistening teeth, snatching sailors straight from their decks. On the other side, Charybdis, a vast, gaping whirlpool that drank the sea and spat it out in thunder 3 times a day, pulling whole ships into the abyss. Circe had warned him, steer closer to Scylla. Better to lose a few than to lose them all. And so, with a heart made heavy by duty, Odysseus sailed his ship toward the beast, sacrificing 6 of his men to Scylla's hungry mouths. They pressed on, hearts aching, but fate was not yet done with them. Their final stop before the last leg of their long journey, was the island of Thrinacia, a land sacred to Helios, the sun god. Here, the golden cattle of the sun grazed peacefully, untouched, divine, and forbidden. Odysseus warned his men, harm them, and doom would follow. But the sea held them fast. A storm stranded them for a month, and as their rations ran dry, hunger gnawed at reason. In a moment of desperate weakness, while Odysseus slept, his men defied the warning. They slaughtered the sacred cattle. Helios, furious, demanded vengeance from Zeus. And so, when they set sail again, the sky cracked open, the thunderbolts split their ship in two, the sea claimed every man. All but one, Odysseus, clinging to shattered timbers, was tossed upon the waves for 9 long days, until at last he washed ashore on a distant island, Ogygia, home to the immortal nymph, Calypso. Calypso, captivated by Odysseus, held him captive for 7 long years, offering him immortality and eternal youth if he would stay with her. But Odysseus could not forget. Each day, he sat by the shore, eyes scanning the endless horizon, longing for his home. For Ithaca, for Penelope, for his son, Telemachus, whom he had last held as an infant. His longing was palpable, a testament to the enduring power of home and family. Finally, at the insistence of the goddess Athena, Zeus sent Hermes to Calypso, commanding her to release Odysseus. Reluctantly, she complied, helping him build a sturdy raft. But Poseidon, still nursing his grudge, sent a final, furious storm, smashing his raft. Yet again, Odysseus was plunged into the unforgiving sea, only to be saved by the kindness of a sea nymph, Ino, who gave him her magical veil to protect him. Odysseus, after 2 decades adrift, found himself in the company of the Phaeacians, a noble and generous people, renowned for their seafaring skills. Here, he was discovered by Nausicaa, the beautiful princess, who led him to her parents, King Alcinous and Queen Arete. Still cloaked in secrecy, he told them his tale of gods and monsters, storms and sorrow, of love, loss, and longing. Not until the very end did he reveal his true name, Odysseus, king of Ithaca, a man who had traveled farther and suffered more than any other. The Phaeacians were deeply moved. They saw in him not just a weary traveler, but a hero, a man of resilience, wit, and enduring spirit. And so, they did what none had done before. They brought him home. They gifted him a ship laden with food, wine, and treasures, and set sail in the stillness of night, while Odysseus slept, finally at peace. When he awoke, his feet touched the soil of Ithaca at last. But it was not the welcome he had dreamed of. The land, once so familiar, now felt distant, like a memory half remembered. And Odysseus himself was not the same man who had once left it. Athena, wise and watchful, met him on that lonely shore. With a wave of her hand, she cloaked him in disguise, transforming the weathered king into a frail, bent beggar. In this humble form, he would walk among the living ghosts of his past, seeing his kingdom not as a ruler, but as a stranger. At the heart of his home, his grand hall had become a den of greed. Arrogant suitors, believing him long dead, feasted on his stores, vied for Penelope's hand, and plotted to take his throne. Odysseus, ever patient, ever cunning, did not reveal himself. Not yet. He would watch, he would listen, and when the moment was right, he would strike. The stage was set. After 20 long years, Odysseus stood on the threshold of his own home, a stranger in rags, yet more himself than ever before. Only his old loyal dog, Argos, recognized him, wagging his tail before dying of joy. His faithful swineherd, Eumaeus, welcomed him, unknowingly sheltering his king. Telemachus, his son, now a young man, returned from a journey seeking news of his father, and father and son had their tearful, long-awaited reunion. Inside the great hall, Penelope, his queen, had held steadfast. For years, she had kept the suitors at bay, weaving a shroud by day and secretly unraveling it by night. But now, the pressure was unbearable. The palace was overrun. The time had come for a choice. She proposed a challenge. Whoever could string the mighty bow of Odysseus, a weapon only he had ever mastered, and shoot a single arrow cleanly through 12 aligned axe heads, would win her hand in marriage. The suitors, proud and boastful, laughed at the task. One by one, they stepped forward, straining, sweating, failing. And then, the old beggar, silent and still, stepped forward. Jeers echoed through the hall. What could this ragged man accomplish that nobleman could not? But Odysseus, calm and steady, took the bow in hand. With effortless grace, he bent it, strung it, and loosed the arrow. The arrow flew, swift, unwavering, cutting clean through each axe head, as if destiny itself had loosed the string. The hall fell silent. In that stillness, Odysseus shed his disguise. The beggar vanished. The king stood revealed. And then, the reckoning began, with Telemachus beside him and the steadfast loyalty of Eumaeus and Philoetius. Odysseus reclaimed his home. Arrow after arrow, blow after blow, justice was delivered to the suitors who had feasted on his household and mocked his name. Athena watched from the shadows, silent but guiding. This was not mere revenge. It was restoration. The blood that soaked the palace floor marked the end of a long betrayal. And as the echoes of violence faded, a quiet peace began to settle over Ithaca once more. Though the tale is thousands of years old, the Odyssey continues to resonate. Its author, or perhaps its legendary bard, was Homer, a figure as mysterious as the myths he preserved. Whether he was one man or a tradition of oral storytellers, we may never know. But what we do know is this: Homer gave us more than just a story. He gave us a map of the human heart, its longing, its loyalty, its flaws, and its courage. In Odysseus, we see ourselves, pulled by duty, tempted by comfort, haunted by mistakes, but always reaching for home. To this day, the Odyssey remains one of the foundational texts of Western literature. Its themes echo in novels, films, and the stories we tell each other when the lights go low. It reminds us that while monsters may change shape and seas may grow quieter, the journey inward, toward who we truly are, is the greatest voyage of all. While the Odyssey is undoubtedly a masterpiece of myth and poetry, teeming with gods, monsters, and supernatural trials, many scholars and archaeologists have long wondered, could there be real-world roots beneath its fantastical surface? Odysseus' homeland, Ithaca, is indeed a real island in the Ionian Sea, though its exact ancient location remains a topic of scholarly debate. His long and perilous voyage may mirror actual maritime routes across the Mediterranean, routes once traveled by ancient traders navigating treacherous waters and unfamiliar coasts. The island of the Cyclops, for instance, is often linked to Sicily, home to volcanic landscapes and isolated communities that may have inspired tales of one-eyed giants and fiery wrath. The strait between Scylla and Charybdis, with its whirlpools and jagged rocks, is widely believed to echo the real Strait of Messina, where ships still battle unpredictable currents today. Even the seemingly mythical lotus eaters might reflect encounters with cultures who use psychoactive plants, while creatures like the Sirens or Lestrygonians could be poetic exaggerations of perilous coastlines or hostile tribes. Though no archaeological find has confirmed the journey of Odysseus, these echoes of reality offer a fascinating glimpse into how ancient Greeks interpreted the world around them, blending geography, seafaring dangers, and cross-cultural contact into a timeless tale of adventure and survival. As you drift deeper into sleep, perhaps you can imagine the quiet contentment of Odysseus, finally resting in his own bed, in his own home, after 20 long years of wandering. The scent of the sea still lingers on the breeze, but the winds are calm now. The fires are lit, the voices of loved ones echo softly through familiar halls, and the long ache of longing has finally eased into peace. He is home, and so are you. Let the stories of the past wash over you like a warm tide, carrying your thoughts far from the weight of the day to the quiet shores of dreams. Until next time, sleep well and good night.